I've been going through this series of people from the past and even the recent past or the present whose work has challenged my thinking, who's helped me refine my thinking, allowed me to think with greater clarity, to be better at problem solving, to be better at recognizing the logical fallacies and the cognitive biases to which I succumb sometimes. And there are a lot of people, books usually, authors of books, that have helped me refine my thinking and lead to the way that I approach that metaphorical and literal treasure hunting today. And today I want to talk about one of my favorites, J.R.R. Tolkien. So you probably know him for his work, The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, but he wrote other things as well. Fascinating, a trained linguist, a brilliant guy who even wrote the languages. He wrote like an elven language and other languages. He didn't just write stories. He created entire worlds, and then he told the stories that happened in those imaginary worlds. And Tolkien did write some nonfiction as well. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to take you through 5 insights that I have gleaned from Tolkien, but I'm going to do it in the form of 5 quotes, or at least paraphrases of quotes, all that come from a particular work. It's a short story. It's not really a short story. It's an essay in a collection. It's called On Fairy Stories. And it's actually in this larger collection called Tree and Leaf, if you want to check that out, which is worth having a copy of if you want to read something really fascinating. So let's kind of work our way through this and see what we might glean about clear thinking, problem solving, truth seeking, and metaphorical and literal treasure hunting. Here we go. First one, fantasy can, he wrote, and there's a part I'm skipping, can be a natural human activity. It certainly does not destroy or even insult reason. Sometimes, I think in my own thinking, I conflated. I thought you had fantasy and imagination, and then you had reason, and those were kind of enemies and completely different. But Tolkien helped me to understand that imagination and reason actually work very well together. That you have to test your imaginative thoughts with reason sometimes, and your reason can be fuel for imaginative endeavors, solutions, creations, creative problem solving, discovering things that have been hidden otherwise. I think that's been a beautiful one that I got from Tolkien. A second one is this. He wrote, "It was in fairy stories that I first divined the potency of the words and the wonder of things, bread and wine." Now, bread and wine is an allusion to his Christian faith and the sacredness and meaning of the sacrament of Holy Communion. But here, he talks about divining the potency of words and the wonder of things, that he began to develop this appreciation for symbols and for words, and how a single word can cause you to think about some things and attend less to other things. And it was something in that quote that really led me to pay even closer attention to words and how they're used and how I use them and how I misuse them, and I still do that regularly. And T.S. Eliot, I have another video on T.S. Eliot. Him and his poetry did something similar for me. But Tolkien in this quote, it really stuck with me. A third one is this: "Fairy is a perilous land and filled with beauty and an ever-present peril." And I think that this is interesting in his efforts to make worlds, to create these imaginary worlds. He created these worlds where you have this clashing of beauty and peril and difficulty. That there's kind of this risk and wonder that go together in these imaginary worlds, and that's really part of what intrigues me about the literal treasure hunt and its metaphorical counterpart in life, is that the experience of wonder brings with it sometimes some fear and some awe. But as your wonder leads you to go on an adventure, that leads you to have this kind of risk. And I don't know what it was about that quote, but it got me realizing and thinking more about the relationship between wonder and risk and how they're kind of friends and they go together. And that's necessary for truth-seeking and for bold, courageous problem-solving and treasure hunting, the literal and metaphorical kind. Fourth quote I thought I'd share for you is, "The recovered thing is not quite the same as the thing never lost, often more precious." So rediscovering a hidden insight or a clue or something, it can feel more rewarding. That sometimes we learn something or we discover something and then we lose it again and we come back to it, and it's the same thing, but to us, it's not the same thing anymore. And that's also something that I mentioned in my video about T.S. Eliot and one of his quotes, where we start somewhere and we go on a journey and we come back to the same destination, finding that it's a different place than what it was when we left. But really, it's because we're a different person. We can see differently. We can appreciate things differently. And I think that's true as well as we go about our literal and metaphorical treasure hunts. And the fifth one is to make a secondary world. This kind of imaginary world making that he did will probably require labor and thought. Then we have a rare achievement of art. That's one thing that I really love about this modern expression of games and game design and treasure hunting and even things like escape rooms and other pieces, is it really is a kind of participatory art. It's a design. People design this, and they put a lot of care into their designs. And the designs are imperfect. All human designs are imperfect. Even great masterpieces of art have their flaws. Even if you were to ask the artist, some of them might acknowledge the flaws or how they wanted something maybe to be a little bit different than it was or something like that. But there's this kind of rational part of the treasure hunt and the metaphorical and literal type, and yet there's also sort of an art component to it. And I hold the designers in very high regard for taking a risk and being able to put their art out in the world, inviting people into it to go on some kind of journey and see what they might discover along the way. So there you have it. There are 5 insights that I gleaned from J.R.R. Tolkien about thinking clearly, problem solving, imaginative work, and that metaphorical and literal treasure hunting in our lives.